everybody. Welcome to Build. I'm your host, Brittany, together for Jennifer Beals.
Thank you. It's such a meta moment right now to be introduced by being on a talk show and then being on a talk show. It's really fun.
It's amazing. And also, this audience is just as excited to see you as that audience was to see Bet. I think that's the general consensus, right? People cannot wait for this show. And I want to dial it back. Yes, yes. And I want to dial it back when it ended 10 years ago. Were you ready for it to be over? Like, can you take me back to that time?
Well, I thought, well, the sixth season, frankly, wasn't my favorite season, but
Same.
It was really hard. It was very, kind of painful storylines, but I think I was ready to take a little bit of a break, so I don't think we were out of stories yet, actually, looking back. And I think we all expected something to take its place right away. We had had a very successful run, and the little lesbian show that could, did well, and we thought something would take its place, and then it didn't. There were certain shows that occupied sort of a similar space, but not that. And so Kate, Moennig, Leisha Hailey, who you saw in the clip, and I are all friends, and we started talking about, wouldn't it be interesting to bring the show back? And then we started seeing in online chat rooms and social media, people were talking about the L Word, and very, very dedicated fans. And then we also began to realize that that there was this new generation coming up that hadn't been represented yet either. And this generation was changing how we talk about gender identity and sexual orientation, and basically at the bottom line talking about embracing authenticity to a degree to which the culture really hadn't seen before. And when we approached Eileen about it, she was excited about it, but she was working on this little show called Empire, so she didn't have very much time at that moment to do it. And then the 2016 election happened, and we knew that this divisiveness was coming. We knew that that the LGBT community would be attacked, which it was right from the get-go, and we wanted to offer visibility as a form of agency and self-worth and many, many other things. But yeah.
And you are an executive producer, as are Leisha and Kate.
Yes.
And I want to know how that has impacted your experience with the show, because you mentioned that, final season you weren't that, happy with the storylines. I didn't like Jenny Schechter, so I was like, okay with it. But tell me why it was important for you to have this leadership role to be a part of the revival.
Well, I don't know that it was important for us to have this leadership role to be part of the revival. Or the rebel yell, as I like to refer to it. But because we had instigated it, Eileen was very generous in making us her partners. And frankly, on the original L Word, she, her door was always open, and we always had in-depth conversations with her about storylines and character. And even though, I didn't love the sort of murder mystery part of the sixth season, I loved my character so much. I loved what she did with my character, that I was really willing to go wherever Eileen Chaikin wanted to lead Bet Porter.
Let's talk about Bet.
Oh, gosh.
Let's talk about Bet, because I love Bet. She is ambitious, she is smart, she is driven, and she is so damn messy.
Oh, my gosh.
And
Have you seen the first 3 episodes?
I watched the first 3 episodes, and I'm like, okay, that's our Bet.
Yes, some things don't change. Some things don't change.
What was it like getting back into character?
It was really exciting. It was really exciting to revisit this person that I love so much after 10 years. It's like seeing an old friend. You recognize what core values have stayed the same, what core flaws have stayed the same, and then you try to figure out what's changed too. And it was really important for me to see what had changed and lean into that a little bit. And certainly the last 2.5 years of her life have been really, really challenging. And she's basically the kind of person who works through everything. She has to solve the problem all the time. And so the season is really like a healing in a way, yeah. And her primary love is her daughter, Angelica.
Who is a teen.
Yes, who's 16 now.
So what did you bring differently to Bet now that her daughter is a teen, and how has motherhood sort of changed her?
Well, in parenting a teen who's going through this individuation process, who's, trying to figure out who she is, um, you know, Bet has to give her the space to do that. And Bet isn't known for not being particularly controlling. So that was challenging for my character, for sure. But I love the relationship with Angie, who's played by Jordan Hall. She's really, really wonderful.
I do actually really like it. I won't spoil anything, but I do love the push and pull of that relationship. It feels really lived in, very real, and I think we get to see that vulnerability in Bet, which sometimes she tries to hide. But with
Yes,
the people
yes.
close to her, she really lets it out, and I
Yes.
like seeing that vulnerability in her. That's
Yes.
fun for you to play with her.
Yeah, well, that was always the polarity that interested me. You have this person who's very authoritative in many ways, but and very strong, but is incredibly vulnerable at the same time. And I liked that dichotomy.
And it's all of that which makes her a great candidate for the mayor of LA, which Bet is running for mayor of LA in the
Yes,
pilot.
right.
Can you take me through why that was a storyline you guys wanted to pursue? Because I see it as a really amazing way to address a lot of the political issues that we're dealing with now in reality.
Right. Well, we felt like it was a natural extension of her her interest in politics prior to this point, and and she had addressed those through art. And when you come back, she's the deputy director of the Department of Cultural Affairs, or is it director of Cultural Affairs? My brain just had a little glitch, and so these things that happened to her in those 2 years, she sees problems that need to be solved, and if nothing else, she's a problem solver. And some people run for office for egoic reasons, and some people run for office in order to solve problems that they see and have maybe encountered personally. And she's that person. And I am surrounded by a wonderful team for my campaign. I have an aide named Pierce, who's played by Brian Michael Smith, who's really fantastic. When I saw his audition, that's one of the really fun things about being an EP. You get to weigh in on the casting process, particularly as acting EPs, and his audition was just phenomenal.
Let's talk about the cast. Let's talk about the original trio. I was so happy you were the three that were bound together and came back. I was always the most drawn to your characters, so I think a lot
Well,
of
I
people-
would have loved to have had everyone come back.
I know, but I
frankly.
feel like these three were the most dynamic in a lot of different ways, and definitely the ones that the audience connected to the most. So I was happy as a fan
Well,
to
thank
have
you.
them back. What was it like just getting back on set with those two?
Oh my gosh, it was surreal.
Right?
It's
Like-
just absolutely surreal. There's a lot of laughing and a lot of, looking at each other like, am I dreaming? What's going on? But we had worked so hard to bring it back and we had talked about it so much, but there's still nothing like looking across the table and seeing your friends in their, wardrobe, doing the Shane thing and doing the Alice thing. And it was fun. It was like a homecoming, really.
And it really feels like a natural pickup. Like I didn't have to work to get back into it. You know what I mean? That's a real testament
good.
to how intimately you guys know these characters.
Yes, and I think it's also a testament to our new showrunner, Marjorie Lewis Ryan, too.
And so I know the first time around, the show received some criticism about the cast, right? Maybe not being diverse enough, or maybe not having enough mass-presenting lesbians, or not exploring the world of a bisexual person in a way that people felt was enough. So how did that inform how you guys casted this time around?
Well, we knew that we wanted to be as inclusive as possible and as diverse as possible within the construct of what stories do you want to tell. I mean, the queer community is not a monolith. It's, there are myriad stories. There's so many stories. There's no one could quantify the amount of stories that are in the community, and you do the best you can with the amount of cast members that you have. But making sure that our cast was inclusive and diverse was very important, as was making sure that trans actors play trans roles, and some trans actors are playing cis roles. So it's exciting.
I love that. Leo is a trans actor playing a trans person.
Yes.
And I'm so drawn to that storyline. It is so beautiful. And why was that important for you to make sure that trans actors were playing trans roles?
Well, I think you know, it's that moment in time where we all recognize that that's the appropriate thing, where people take ownership of their narrative, you know? And he's very fortunate to have Freddie Miaris as his scene partner, who of course was in When They See Us, and he's terrific. So they're really great together.
It's such an interesting show because, like you said, the culture has continued to evolve and change at this really rapid pace. And so no one show can really, I think, encompass the full LGBTQ plus community.
No.
You know what I mean? And I think that's
It's like no
important to
one
note.
love story can tell every love story. Like it's like no, you know, hetero movie can tell every hetero story. It's not possible. But you try to be in your specificity as inclusive as possible. It's interesting. Like the more specific you are, the more inclusive you are. Like we have a character, Sophie, who's the Afro-Latina character, and I was in a production meeting and they were talking about how, okay, this character is going to be doing her hair in the morning. What products do we need to have for her? And I just texted her and I said, you know, Props wants to know, what do you think? I know that you will know. And so she got really excited because, you know, she's going to be laying down her edges in the morning and you don't really see that. You don't see it. And no, I know what it was. Originally they had her putting on her earrings. And but in that specificity of her doing her hair in such a casual way, like every woman can understand that, no matter what type hair you have. You can understand what it is to do your hair in the morning when you're rushing to work.
Yeah, definitely. On that note, what does the writer's room look like?
It's very young and very inclusive and very diverse. Yeah. It's exciting.
important.
It's really, really exciting.
Yeah, and what kind of research did you guys do? I know there's so many, like I said, the landscape has changed so much since the first L Word. There's podcasts, there's all of these forums for open communication and conversation. So did you guys sort of dig through any of those to sort of pick out the topics that seem to be the most important?
I think that writer's room was living those topics. I don't think they needed to do any research at all. Yeah, the only research they had to do, because they're so young, is I told them that I wanted Bet to go through menopause. Because I think menopause plus a control person, you know, a control freak could be a really interesting combination. They had to do some research on that, I think, because they're so young.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you can't control when those heat flashes come.
Yeah.
Or so I've heard, I mean, I don't know. And I'm wondering with the new cast, were they meant to be sort of counterparts for you three? Because I can see sort of ties in the personalities.
But I think that you see that in
Yeah, I just want to know how
I
intentional.
don't think they're really, to me, I don't see that they're counterparts
Okay.
of personality, honestly. I think there's some things that they have in common, like Danny, who plays Arian Mandy, who's really phenomenal in the role, is a really tough negotiator, and she's really, really smart strategically. And I think Bet recognizes that in herself in a way, or recognizes herself in Danny, perhaps. But I wouldn't say that they're a mirror at all, no.
On that note, what did you learn maybe from these new cast members? Anything that surprised you about working with this group?
I just really, really love them. Like they were so excited. You know, they were so excited to be joining this, gosh, I'm not going to call it a brand because it's not a soda. This show, these stories, and so many of them had grown up on the L Word, and some of them, you know, snuck watching the L Word because they didn't want to watch it in front of their parents, and so, you know, for them to then be on the show where they could give back to somebody else who might be watching it was really exciting. Yeah. And for a lot of them, not a lot, but many of them, it was their first job or second job. Like Jordan Hall, who plays my daughter, it's her first job, and she's unbelievably wonderful.
I love that they were fans of the show because I know so many people were. And Fortune Feimster has a recurring role on the series. And I read an article that she was inspired to come out because of the L Word, and now she is 10 years later on the show.
Yes.
And for that to be a similar experience for so many of the people, does that just create that family dynamic even more?
Yes, it's really exciting. It feels then like a legacy in a way, where then hopefully we'll get we'll go for a very long time and get a new cast members and see how the conversation changes. And, you know, Bet may have a cane, but it's okay.
I cannot imagine Bet with a cane.
Oh, as a weapon, maybe.
This interview is sort of difficult for me because there's so many things I want to talk about,
that you
concerned-
can't.
Yeah, that
I know, it's
talk
really
about.
hard.
So you have to promise me you'll
Welcome
come
to my
back.
world.
Yeah, right? Like
Yes.
there's so many cool things that you guys are doing that I don't want to spoil it. But guys, it's definitely worth checking out because
Maybe mid-season I should come back.
come back and let's
Okay.
just like talk about
I would
Bet.
love that,
Like,
yeah.
Bet, come on.
Yeah, and you're going to want to
Just
talk
bet.
to Alice and Shane too. Trust me, you're going to want to talk to
Oh.
Kate and Leisha. They go through some crazy things.
I think I just saw Shane starting something that was,
Yeah,
yeah, anyway.
and the new cast too. Like they're just really really wonderful, incredibly talented, lovely people. And you know, you don't always have a cast cohere like that. And it happened the second time. It's really exciting.
Have you really had time to process the impact that this show has had? Because, you know, I actually just watched all of it last year because I have this job where I'm constantly interviewing actors about shows, and it seemed like every time I would read about Orange is the New Black or Pose, the L word would come up. And so I watched it because I wanted to understand this like cultural phenomenon. So do you really
The
sort
history of the
of,
progression.
yeah, and just
kind
the
of?
progression and how important it is in our culture, do you fully sort of understand that and carry that weight of importance of the show?
Never. I mean, I try to just live in the moment as the character. And I'm grateful for whatever the show is given to people. You know, to be of service makes me very happy. But I don't contextualize it or analyze it in that way at all.
Do fans help you sort of do that, though? I'm sure you get approached often.
Yeah, I mean, I understand how much it's helped people. I do understand that because, you know, the L Word fans are really the best fans I've ever had. When they come up to me or Leisha or Kate and tell you that they're fans of the show, what usually follows quite quickly is their coming out story and what the show meant to them. And so to be able to help someone embrace who they truly are is a huge gift to me. Like I'm really feel honored.
And that's why I'm happy that it's coming back because, again, we're in this amazing period now, this political period where people are owning their identities. And I just think it's important to have art that is expressing that and showing that, again, in a different way. So.
Yes, and also, you know, we're at a time where the language can't contain all the expressions of identity that are happening right now. Like it's this huge tectonic shift, and it changes almost like weekly. And so no one can really keep up with the precision that's happening in terms of language and experience, and people are bound to make mistakes. And I think that it's so important at these moments of intense change to remain curious and to remain humble and at times forgiving too, you know, because the language is slippery right now.
So you're an executive producer on this project, but I know you're also an executive producer on The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo.
Yes,
So
yeah.
can you tell us a little bit about that show and when we can expect to see it?
Oh, sure. Well, The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo came about because I had just finished playing Margot Taft in The Last Tycoon, which was my favorite character I've ever played. And I missed her when I finished. Like, I missed her like I've never missed a character before. And I was talking with my friend Robin Lee, who is a really wonderful actress and writer, and I was telling her a little bit about the character, and she said, "Oh, that sounds so much like my friend's book. Sounds like Evelyn Hugo." And I was like, "Who's Evelyn Hugo? I want to meet Evelyn Hugo. Who's that?" Because it would be like a way of sitting down with Margot. And she said, "Well, the book hasn't come out yet, but maybe she'll give you an advanced reader copy." And so Taylor Jenkins Reid, who's the author, very generously gave me an advanced reader copy, and I read it and fell in love with Evelyn. And I mean, I still love Margot. Margot, don't worry, like you're my girl. And we sat down to lunch, and I just wanted to see it, you know, like I just wanted to see it on screen in some form, and so we decided to work together, and I gave the book to Eileen Chaikin, who really loved it, and we've just set it up at Freeform, and it's in the early stages right now.
That's so exciting. What do you look for in projects? This one seems like you liked that the character was similar to a character that you played, but at this point, what is it that draws you into a project or makes you want to put your name on it?
I just follow where I get excited, you know? Like, a while ago, maybe 2 years ago now, I was hiking and I started thinking about this story, and you know, people were telling me about these different threads online that were literally revenge threads and people coming after one another in this sort of mob justice online. And I thought, okay, what if it's 5 minutes into the future and it really gets out of hand, so out of hand that the government decides to take over and creates an algorithm whereby justice is meted out by the group, by the Hive. And what if some young girl just, you know, makes an offhand comment online trying to impress the mean girls because she's at a new school and her father's just died and everything's sort of a mess, and it gets taken out of context, and all of a sudden the Hive has turned its wrath on her. Okay, what happens then? Right. And so I was talking to my producing partner, Tom Jacobson, who's a dear friend, about it, and he said, well, you know, let's see what we can do. Maybe I would really love to work with you on it. Let's maybe, you know, see if we can make it into a film or a TV show. And then we started talking about the idea and all of the different concepts that were actually within the idea. And he said, you know, this is getting really complicated in a way. What if we make it into a novel first to kind of explore the terrain? And I was like, sure, why not? And we wrote a treatment and sold it to a publisher. And we're very fortunate that Barry Lyga and Morgan Baden were the authors of the book, and that came out in the fall. It's called The Hive, and now we have an entity that's approached us about turning it into a TV series.
I love that. I love how diversified you are, like right now. You know what I mean? Like that must be fun to just pick projects that you feel passionate about and you can really put yourself into.
I think you just follow where you get excited. You know, like what's making me happy? What's exciting me? And if you can't figure out how to do it on your own, then you think to yourself, okay, well, who could help me, and who would I like to partner with? And I'm going to ask them, because as my mom says, the worst they can say is no. Right. So.
And then they say no, and then you can ask again.
Yeah, you ask somebody else. Yes, exactly. Right.
That's what my mom says. We have some questions. The first one comes from Twitter. Sighthound Grace asks, what are the strongest themes in the L Word Generation Q?
Oh, well, always love is the number one. How do we love? How do we want to be loved? How do we see ourselves, and how do we live most authentically?
Yeah. And from my personal view, the friendship aspect has always been what really connects me to the show. And with each of these two different groups, the casting is so great, and the friendships just feel so authentic, and you like root for these characters, you know?
And I think to that point too, it's also about chosen family. Yeah. I think that's a really big theme.
Absolutely. And 3 more.
Hi, Jen.
Hello.
If there was anyone from the original series of the L Word that you can bring back to Generation Q, who would it be?
Oh, there's so many. I would love to bring Pam Grier back. I would love to bring Laurel back. I'd love to bring Holland Taylor back. I mean, of course, I'd love to resurrect Dana and bring Aaron Daniels back. I mean, there's so many. There's so many. I mean, each and every one were so meaningful, really, and wonderful.
People just clap for Dana. I know it's sad that can we make this like
magical realism?
Magic? Yeah,
yeah. The L Word.
All of a sudden she just pops up. Or like some shows like Will and Grace, they just pretend like things never happened. And then they're just like, oh, they never had a baby. So I'm just saying you have options with Dana.
Right.
Don't feel like you can't surprise the
fans.
I
will. I'm gonna
think
float
about
that one by.
Just think. We just want her to think about it.
Okay.
Who's got the next one?
Hi, I'm such a big fan of you in the show, so I'm so
Thank
grateful to be here, and thank you for the lesbian representation. I really appreciate it. So my question is, how does it feel to have this new generation of fans now that the show is on Netflix and like being revived? Like myself, I was really young when it came out, so how does it feel to have all these new people really excited?
I am just so excited that the themes are enduring, that the themes relate to different generations, and I hope in a way that they will continue to relate to upcoming generations, but it's very gratifying.
Also, you can chart the progress, right? Because when the original show was on, gay marriage wasn't legalized.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
You know, it was still illegal to be gay in the military. And these are things that we don't think about now, but they were real issues, and we have to, I think you have to be constantly reminded so we don't slide back.
Yes, exactly, because it's not a given.
Yeah, absolutely. And last one.
Hi there.
Hi.
Thank you for being at World Pride. That was a great,
Oh, it was so
wonderful
much
to see you.
fun.
I gave you the pink sign.
Thank you.
What does chosen family mean to you, and how does it manifest itself onto the show?
Well, I think, there are times when your biological family, as much as you would hope that they would be supportive and loving and nurturing, perhaps they aren't. Perhaps they don't really see you. And so to find those people that do see you and do nourish you and do support you is incredibly important. And you have to cherish those people.
Well, again, I need you to come back
Okay.
mid-season.
All right.
Or
It's on.
next season.
Okay.
We're going to dig in even deeper, talk
Okay.
about Bet and her antics. But in the meantime, guys, the L Word Generation Q premieres this Sunday, December 8th on Showtime. Put your hands together for Jennifer Beals.
Thank you.